Today we are here to discuss about postal history, and I'm in conversation with Shri S. Rajendra Kumar.
The post office provides services not only where there is business, it provides where the service is needed, even in the remotest places. I should say that the word post is more ancient than the word mail. The organized postal system in India dates back to the Mauryan Empire. The Mauryan Empire had what are called as dutas or envoys. They are the royal envoys who used to carry the messages to the other neighboring kingdoms. The British wanted to have some means of showing their presence to people, and that is where this idea of the letterboxes came.
The heritage and the history is spoken by the architecture, which is retained by the India Post also. The way we are able to connect nook and corner of the country is through the railway network. We have to admit that.
In fact, on 1st February 1880 was when the railway mail service was first established.
There is national movement going on. So, did postal network in any way fuel the national movement?
And if you see the number of letters which Mahatma Gandhi has written during his lifetime, it is phenomenal, really, we should say.
Hello and welcome to the India Post podcast. Today we are here to discuss about postal history, and I'm in conversation with Shri S. Rajendra Kumar, Chief Postmaster General, Karnataka Postal Circle, an IPOS officer from 1990 batch. Sir has been associated with the department from past 35 years. Sir, hearty welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Sir, before we talk about postal history, I would really want to know about the human history and how communication is an important aspect of human history.
Yeah, if you see the way the life has evolved in on this planet, over the last few thousand years only, we find humans dominating this planet. And what is it that sets apart humans when compared to any other life forms that has enabled them to dominate this planet, which may not be, of course, liked by the earth, is that the humans are able to communicate and network with each other. Many life forms are able to communicate with each other, but being able to standardize these communications and networking and communicating directly as well as indirectly has enabled humans to not only dominate their environment, they also to expand their influence, and that is what has led to the development of empires. And as we see, the known history that we are aware of is about societies expanding and then forming empires. And why do they form empires? Because they need resources to sustain their living. So the communication has played a very important role in enabling the humans to do this.
Sir, let us understand the etymology of the word post. Generally, what happens in a layman's term, the word post and mails are interchangeably used. So do we have any history attached to this origination of the word?
Yeah, I should say that the word post is more ancient than the word mail. The post is derived from what are called as post houses. That is, from the ancient times, when we talk about communicating messages, there was a requirement of messengers to travel from place to place. And there had to be some arrangement on the way for them to rest and then proceed further. And these are the what are called as post houses. And in the various civilizations that you see, they may be called by different names, but this is the system that was in vogue. Now, when it comes to the word mail, now it is derived from a medieval English word called mail, M-A-L-E, and it essentially means a bag. And it is also a similar word in French, which means a trunk or a big box. Okay, so what does it mean? It means, I suppose, a bag of letters being sent from one place to another. Now, from the 1600s onwards, this is the word mail has more been akin to letters. Okay, so people started calling a bag of letters as mail bag. It is more or less something like saying a bag. Okay, but anyway, that is how the word mail has come about. Now, when it comes to, the modern understanding is that The word post is associated with the office that provides this service. That's a post office. And the operations are called with the name mail. When we talk about mail operations. So something that is taken from one place to another, processes that we use for that, they are called as mail operations. And the place where you provide this service is called as a post office. You post some stuff on social media. So something that is for public consumption is something that you post. Okay. Whereas when you are sending one-to-one, it is a mail.
So it is very fascinating and interesting to see. We are using these words on an everyday basis. We post our content in social media, we send emails, but we don't end up understanding the genesis of these words. So this is really interesting, sir. So going back, I would want to understand, when we say postal communication, how long can we go back? How far can we go back in the times of history to see any kind of organized postal system, sir?
Yeah, I would leave out mythology, because every civilization all over the world has got in its mythology some reference to this communication of messages and all that. When it comes to recorded history, I should say that it is the Egyptian civilization that has got the oldest records of the communication by writing. Okay, and the oldest piece of written letter also is said to have been the form of a piece of papyrus that is all near more than 4,000 years from the present. So this is one way which you can see. Then you have in Mesopotamia, you had clay tablets. And one interesting thing that you notice in Mesopotamia is that they had a concept of confidentiality. So you write some message on a tablet and then enclose it with another clay enclosure, and it is addressed to someone to whom it is to go. And the recipient has to break it open to see the message. So now if the message is received in a broken condition, you know that the confidentiality has been lost. So this is one interesting thing you see, and how it's sort of a preliminary registration of letters. Okay, now coming to the other means. Pigeons were a very popular means of communication, and you have what are called as homing pigeons. They are trained to come back to their home. That's all. What they do is they just come back to their homes. So they are taken to distant places, and they have the ability to come back to their homes from very long distances also. So that is an ability. Now, in order to ensure confidentiality, it was one had to send by means of messengers, and that is where, as I mentioned earlier, it is the relay postal system that was in use. And again, here it could be messaging by sending messengers by foot or on horseback for faster messages. So here, as regards sending messages by relay post is concerned, we find references from China about 1000 BC. And then around 500 BC, you find references of such a system being established by the Persian Empire. The Cyrus the Great has got references of having set up a messaging system like this. And, there was a fast service being provided by it is called a Chaparkhana. That is by means of horse riding. It is the Romans who had this system, what is called as cursus publicus. That in this they had the same rider going across long distances. But then obviously this used to be very slow, because the rider as well as the horses needed to rest on the way. So it used to take more time. So this is how, these are the various means of that were adopted in the ancient times for the communication of messages.
So speaking of empires, sir, in the Indian context, which empire could we trace back the organized postal system to, sir?
Yeah, definitely we can say that the organized postal system in India dates back to the Mauryan Empire, because we have references in Kautilya's Arthashastra. There are detailed explanations on how the communication system has to be managed. And the Mauryan Empire had what are called as dutas, or envoys. They are the royal envoys who used to carry the messages to the other neighboring kingdoms. And they were sort of representatives of the king. Now, In addition to this, they also had messengers who doubled up as spies. So their main ask was, apart from communicating messages, to get intelligence from the provinces, especially from the peripheries of the empire, and also get revenue information, because this is also a problem that if revenue information is hidden, it is possible that the kingdom doesn't get the revenue that is expected. So this was the system that the Mauryans had. Also, they also had these pigeons as messengers.
When did this actual private communication start? I mean, did it really start in the earlier times, or we had to wait till the British came to India?
No, we did have private messages. As you said, even in ancient times, if there was a requirement for people to send messages, they would send through friends and relatives. When it comes to the medieval times, yes, the first recorded history that we get of messages being sent officially comes during the Sultanate period. It was seen as a sort of a revenue earning mechanism also. So the messengers were allowed to take private messages, but it was very limited, and it was very, very expensive, prohibitively expensive.
So let us talk about certain things which are inevitable part of the post office today. If somebody gets to visit a post office today, he or she cannot do away with noticing the date stamp which is available at the counters. Do we have any history attached to the date stamp which we use, sir?
Yeah, the date stamp that we see on every letter. There is a common misconception that it is cancellation of a stamp, postage stamp. Although it is currently used as a means of cancelling a postage stamp, now we should see that postage stamps came into being somewhere around 1840s. And date stamps have been in vogue even since the 16th century when it comes to the British postal system. So when you see the British postal history, sometime around I should say, to be precise, 1549, there was that was when, in fact, in Britain, they have allowed private private messages to be sent to the post office. They gave it as a revenue target to the post office. So in 1949, the target was £5,000 of revenue to be given to the exchequer for the postal system, because all the royal messages, they had to be sent, they were sponsored by the exchequer. Every year the post office had to give a revenue of £5,000. If they have earned more than that, it would be a profit for them. Now you see that within 10 years, in the year 1860, there was one Henry Bishop who was appointed as the Postmaster General, and he was awarded a contract of £21,000. So within 10 years, we find that the revenue expectation increased 4 times. Now, why this Henry Bishop is important is that he was the one who saw that there are a lot of mail going here and there, and there are complaints coming that the mail is reaching late and all that. He said that there's a need for some way of knowing when something was dispatched and when it was received. That's where he started putting these marks, and these are in philately circles, they are called as bishop marks. So this is something that is of significance in the world of philately, what is called as bishop marks, which are dated back to the 16th century. Now, in India, if you see, somewhere around 1680s is when this Mysore kingdom introduced what is called as a Mysore Anche for the postal system within the Mysore kingdom, and they had developed their own system of marking dates on their systems, on Mysore Anche. So we can say that postmarks existed even in India much before the introduction of the postage stamps. Of course, what happens is once postage stamps got introduced as a means of prepayment, initially they had a problem of people reusing these stamps. So in order to reduce the usage of stamps, postmasters used to cut these with some pen or something like that. So it used to be called as a cancellation. Then I suppose somebody came up with this brilliant idea. Why unnecessarily put a separate postmark as well as cancel it with a pen, the postage stamp? Why not put this postmark on the stamp itself, which also serves as a means of cancellation?
So that is the history of the date stamp we see in the post offices, which makes a lot of beautiful noise for the people to listen. So since we are talking about the items which depict the post office, which in a way represent post office, I would want to know the history of letterboxes, sir. How these street letterboxes were introduced. Is there any story? Is there anything interesting which happened when the...
Yeah, in India, if I should say, that street letterboxes came into existence sometime in the 1850s. In 1854 was the time when in 1854 the Postal Department came into existence. That was the East India Company's rule at that time, and the British wanted to have some means of showing their presence to people, and that is where this idea of the letterboxes came. And in fact, in the year 1856, there was a set of around 200 crown, what are called as crown letterboxes, came into India. They were shipped to India. They were beautiful letterboxes, towering letterboxes with a crown on top of it and all that, to show that the presence of the British Raj. When people saw these letterboxes on the streets, and they were told that if you post a letter inside in that, here I will use the word post because we are more used to using the word post. They were told that it will reach its destination provided you give the address properly. This one, and this is something very fascinating. And there is a recorded incident of a person who very hesitantly approaches a box and puts his letter inside this, and then secretly converses at the mouth of the letter box, saying that this letter has to go into such and such a place. Because his thinking was there is a postman sitting inside the box who is collecting these letters, and he will be taking the letters to the destination. So, I mean, these are some of the imaginations when letter boxes were initially introduced, and the type of addresses that they wrote also were quite comical, because you would find letters like this is addressed to the lotus feet of my elder brother who is like God to me, and all those things. So a lot of things except the actual location where it has to go. So these were some of the documented interesting tidbits that you can see with regard to the addresses, and you can find a lot of such information in a book written by Geoffrey Clark. He was the DG of the post office, postal department, about 100 years back.
Sir, the present day post office, how we see it, was the how far we have to go back to see the presence of a post office, which we can compare it to today's environment. Today, if I walk into Bengaluru GPO, was there any GPO or a post office back in times in British rule?
Yeah. Actually, if you see, the East India Company had a need for the post offices for their own requirements, for safeguarding their empire as well as for their business needs. So as early as 1727, there is a record of a post office having been set up in Calcutta. And to put things in perspective, I think it was the time of the decline of the Mughal Empire in Delhi. And in 1774, it was the GPO that was set up in Calcutta. And then subsequently, we had the GPOs at Madras and Bombay. And the location of the Calcutta GPO that we see currently was actually the location of the old Fort William.
Okay, so the heritage and the history is spoken by the architecture, which is retained by the India Post also. Likewise, we have Bewley in our, which happens to be your officer since past 4-5 years. What do you feel about Bewley, sir? How do you feel working in a building which is...
Yeah, it is very interesting. It's a good experience working in a heritage building. And Bewley is such a building which is it is located on the Palace Road, but because it is located a little inside the compound and it is facing away from the main road, it is very, very peaceful. And Bewley is a building that came up, that was constructed sometime in the mid 19th century, and it was built by a British officer by name Lancelot Ricketts.
It's really interesting, sir. Sir, can we hear about the railway network and its impact on the railway? Because when we speak of post office, the way we are able to connect nook and corner of the country is through the railway network. We have to admit that. So how did this come into being? What is the impact which railways had on postal services?
Yeah, I mean, if you go about, apart from the railway system, like for any postal communication, you need means of transport. As we saw earlier, it could be foot messenger or horses. So in the 1850s is when the railways came to India, and Dalhousie at that time had issued the orders in 1854. He had made the order that every rail company should transmit mail on some payment, of course, but it was compulsory. They cannot refuse. So the first time the train was used was a decade later, actually. It's around 1864 was when the first time trains started being used for mail transmission. They were called as travelling post offices at that time. In fact, on 1st February 1880 was when the railway mail service was first established.
So eventually the travelling post office ended up being called railway mail
service. And you see, it's interesting that after the railways came into being, you had the motor transport coming in. You see, motor transport came up in the late 19th century and in the 20th century, early 20th century. We had mail vans coming to the picture sometime in the 1920s, mail buses and all those things. Even before the mail buses came into the picture, you had the mail transmission by air. That is something that is very interesting. A lot of people, and they found that why not experiment transmitting a mail by air, so that you are not concerned about all the traffic jams and all along the way. So they experimented transmission of mail by a plane between Allahabad and a neighboring town called Naini, which was across the Ganga river. Distance was only about maybe hardly 20 kilometers, but it was a great leap forward in terms of postal transmission. And we can be proud that that was the very first instant of mail being transmitted by air anywhere in the world.
So we are speaking of roadways, railways, airways also done. Did they not use sea routes, which was obviously predominantly used back in the time?
Yeah, as I had told earlier, yes, for long distances across the oceans, they were using sea route. The first email to India came up in 1840, and in the 1850s, you had this email from Calcutta to Port Blair. So these type of mail systems came up, and you also had sea sorting offices also, just like you had sorting offices in trains. They had sea sorting offices between Bombay and the Suez. So
interesting, sir. Interesting, sir. So we are talking about British India having a postal system established in India and trying to work on that. And gradually there is national movement going on. So did postal network in any way fuel the national movement, or did it help the national?
It's a very, very interesting phenomenon, we should say, that the postal network essentially was designed to be a tool of the British Empire for sustaining their empire. But it became a double-edged sword for them, because the same network got to be used for spreading nationalist literature, and it was widely used in the national movement. And if you see the number of letters which Mahatma Gandhi has written during his lifetime, it is phenomenal, really, we should say. And all this has gone through the postal system. The literature, nationalist literature used to go. There used to be one or two that is literate people in the villages. They used to sit in the post office premises, and they used to read out these letters or the literature, and that is how people got to know about what is happening all over the world, and that is how the post office helped in fueling the nationalist movement. I think the British got a wind of it, and in the 1898 Post Office Act, what they did was they brought in a censorship. And it is very interesting that there is one of the co-founders of the Indian National Congress. As you know, it is a British retired civil servant, Alan Octavian Hume, who brought it. So there were some Britishers who were supporting this Indian National Congress. And one of those founding members, he complained bitterly multiple times to the Postal Department, saying that my letters to Gopalakrishna Gokhale are being tampered, and you are reading what is, and there are a lot of underlinings and all those things. My privacy is being breached and all that. So it's very interesting that despite all this censorship and all that, this postal system really played a very important role in the nationalist movement.
So when do we see the actual postage stamps, which we know in Indian context?
Yeah, as I said, Rowland Hill brought in the postage stamps in 1840, and in India, the first postage stamp, if you say in the Indian subcontinent, it is the Sindh dock that was brought out in this province of Sindh. But the official postage stamp of the Postal Department came up in the year 1854. So that is where the first postage stamp was introduced in India.
Post offices, sir, have not been restricted to mail transmission from the history what we see. So we also sent away money orders. We also introduced life insurance. We also had financial services. How did it all happen, sir? When did it start, and what was the reason why they had to?
Comes to the financial services. You know, at that point in time, they used to have the money order system that was operated by the treasury of the British government at that time. That was not very efficient and also not ubiquitous enough. Then the brilliant idea came to the British government that why not have the post office to send money orders. So that is where the money orders came into existence in the year 1880. And then came the telegraphic money orders in 1884. And then the savings bank, till then it was the British banks that were offering banking system. The spread was not much. The moment the post office came into the picture, suddenly a few thousand branches came up with every post office becoming a branch. And that became a very popular, the post office savings bank came into existence in 1982. In the year 1984, sorry, it's not 19, it's 1882. And then in the year 1884 came the postal life insurance. You know, there was a story of a clerk in the GPO who died, in a penury, and then the Director General of Post Offices thought of an idea of insuring the postal employees. It started as an insurance of postal employees, which ultimately got spread to other government departments and all that. Currently, it's a very popular life insurance scheme. It's incidentally the oldest life insurance scheme in India.
And now we have been extending the postal life insurance. So it's good to know how PLI was started only for the staff of the postal department, which was way back in British India. So these were about the postal history, sir. And it's important that we communicate to the masses as to why postal history is important. So it was really amazing and educative to talk about the entire postal history with you, sir. It was as a student of postal history, I learned it from you, and I would really want to know what is your message to the viewers on the relevance of the post office today, with such a long history, elaborate of 4,000 years of postal communication history and hundreds of years of British Indian Empire, which introduced postal system. And now we are retaining the legacy and we are continuing the network. One of the world's largest postal network we are operating. So how relevant is post office to the present day, sir?
Yeah. If you talk about relevance, and as regards the written letter or personal communication, I should say that as of now, it may not have any practical importance. It still has an emotional appeal. it. I mean, even now, if you get a letter on a postcard or an envelope from someone, it is something that you will treasure. Okay, but that's only for the emotional part of it. But when it comes to the other requirements of people, post office is turning out to be a channel for providing services to people wherever they are. And post office, as you know, at least in India, is known for its doorstep services. And then we have been providing the services, financial services, since the last over 150 years, now almost 150 years. We have been so we are now providing digital financial services also. And then it's more, post office is becoming a hub for delivery of services. So that is one thing. And also post office is becoming the vehicle for the logistics. If you see the recent phenomenon of the PM Vishwakarma Yojana, thousands of parcels all over the country are being reached out to the remote villages, to the artisans. And that is possible because of the network that the post office has. And post office will always be a balancing factor when it comes to various service providers, because post office will ensure that the customers get a service with value for money. And that is something that we have to keep in mind when you think about the post office. The post office provides services not only where there is business, it provides services where the service is needed, even in the remotest places. And I'm sure that we will be gaining in strength, and we will continue to provide the best of services to the people of India. So,
thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for your sharing your knowledge on postal history with us. It has been an immense learning experience for me and the audience. They must agree if I say this. That was from us about postal history. This was a podcast by India Post. We had with us Shri S. Rajendra Kumar, sir, who is the Chief Postmaster General for Karnataka Postal Circle, sharing his thoughts on Indian postal history as such. Sir, thank you very much.
If you have liked this podcast, I request all of you to like this program and then subscribe to our YouTube channel on India Post.